Good morning, my dear children. This is P. Vasantakumar, social teacher from DAV High School, SDSTPS AP Genco, Naltur. We are going to learn part 3 of the natural realms of the earth. In the previous session, we had learned explain the 4 different names of the earth, describe about the jigsaw puzzle and the moving plates, illustrate about slow movements and sudden movements, describe about external process. Today's lesson learning objectives. By the end of the chapter, you will be able to interpret how air and water transform the surface of the earth, explain the work of water and glaciers on the lithosphere. Now we are going to learn how air and water transform the surface of the earth. The formation of rocks is a result of the molten material coming out from the mantle of the earth. Later, over the millions of years, these got shaped into valleys, plains, mountains, and plateaus, etc. There exist many processes like weathering, erosion, transportation, deposition in the breaking, carrying and deposition of primary rocks. This process is formally defined as follows. First, we are going to learn about weathering. Weathering includes the methods of processes which weaken and break the rocks. Weathering breaks down and loosens the surface minerals of rock so that they can be transported away by agents of erosion such as water, wind and ice. The atmospheric force and weather force causes breakdown of rocks. The rocks expand in heat and contract when cooled during day and night. This process happens through the year in summer and winter seasons. The process of expansion and contraction and the presence of water and moisture in the air makes the rocks brittle and break down. My dear children, look at a large cracked rock and you will find that the color of the internal core of the rock is different from the outer layer. The color of the outer layer changes due to this process of weathering. You will find, my dear children, it is easier to chip small pieces of rocks from the outer layer rather than from the core of the rock. Now we are going to learn second one, erosion. The process of moving soil and cutting rock by water or air on the surface of the earth is called erosion. Water acts in the form of river, sea waves, glaciers, etc., whereas wind takes many forms like storms, steady winds, etc. Flowing water and wind have great power and can slowly wear away or cut away the rocks and soil cover in higher places. Now we are going to learn third one, transportation. Material that has been loosened by erosion may be then transported along the river. Transportation is the process where the eroded material like small rocks, gravel, mud, soil are carried by wind and water. The rivers and waves cut rocks and transport them from one place to another. Sometimes it takes them hundreds of kilometers. Now we are going to learn fourth one, deposition. The river and wind, after they slow down, lose the force to carry the material and thus they deposit the material. These dumped debris finally form plains and rivers basins. Sedimentary rocks are types of rock that are formed by the deposition of material from the Earth's surface and within bodies of water. Let us see action of water on lithosphere. Flowing water in streams and rivers across the land in sheets is the erosional process in shaping Earth's landscape. Streams and rivers are able to create both erosional landforms such as wound channel, canyons, and valleys, and depositional landforms like floodplains, alluvial fans, and deltas as they over Earth's surface. River flows down from its source in the mountains, and as it descends the steep slopes, it flows with great force and cuts the mountains vertically, thus creating a V-shaped valley. V-shaped valleys are generally narrow at the bottom and wide at the top. When the river cuts the harder rocks, a very narrow valley with steep sides are formed. These are called as gorges. Examples: Janskar Gorge in Kashmir. A canyon is a deep, narrow valley with steep sides. A canyon comes from the Spanish word canon, which means tube or pipe. The term gorge is often used to mean canyon, but a gorge is almost always steeper and narrower than a canyon. The biggest canyon in the world is on River Colorado, Arizona, USA. The Grand Canyon is 466 kilometers in length. Its depth is 1.6 kilometers and width is 188 meters to 29 kilometers. The waterfall with great force dig deep into the rocks and form a pool called as a plunge pool. Children, look at the table for a while. Top 5 highest waterfalls of the world. Dear children, what is the difference between the gorge and canyon? A gorge is almost equal in width at its top as well as its bottom. In contrast, a canyon is wider at its top than at the bottom. The floodplains like Ganga Plain and Krishna Godavari Plain are formed due to the movement of the rivers. The speed of the river gets reduced when it enters a plain, and thus it does not have the force to carry heavy particles and hence deposits them on the banks. The river during floods cuts down the soil and produces silt, whereas the river without floods deposits silt. With the repetition of this process, the height of the river bed increases with the deposition, and when the flood water comes again, it changes its courses and cuts a new path. As a result, the river constantly changes its course into the floodplain to form meander, turn like a snake, and later Oxbow Lakes. An oxbow lake is a U-shaped body of water that forms when a wide meander from the main stem of a river is cut off, creating a freestanding body of water. Details. Word originated from Greek alphabet. Delta are wetlands that form as rivers empty their water and sediment into another body of water, such as an ocean, lake, or another river. How is the river deposition useful to man? Floodplains and deltas make fertile farmland. The sediment deposited in floodplains and deltas are called silt. Silt is rich in nutrients. Many ancient civilizations flourished in floodplains and deltas. Thus, the deposition of rivers are useful to man. Now let us understand the action of glaciers on lithosphere. Glaciers are not just big pieces of ice that froze overnight. They are actually slow-moving rivers of ice. The formation of glaciers takes a lot of time. In very cold regions like the Himalayas or the Alps, it snows heavily. They get snowfall instead of rainfall. The snowfall regions gets accumulated as ice and then flows down to warm areas and gets melted, thus resulting in the formation of rivers. Example, the birth of river Ganga starts from Gangotri glaciers in Himalayas. The Sundarbans in West Bengal in India are a part of the world's largest delta formed by the mighty rivers Ganges, Brahmaputra and Meghna. The movement of a glacier is generally due to the force of gravity. The glacier moves very slowly, that is a few centimeters a day. There are two fundamental areas in every glacier. They are accumulation area, the area where the snow that falls in winter is preserved during the hot season. Abrasion area, the area where the melting of the snow takes place that is accumulated during the winter season. The U-shaped valleys which we generally observe are a result of the glacier erosion. Glacier erosion includes two main processes, namely plucking and abrasion. Plucking is defined as the erosion and transport of large chunks of rocks. When the glacier moves over a landscape, the glacier melts and the water seeps into the crack within the underlying bedrocks. Glacier abrasion refers to the ability of debris-rich glacier ice to act like a sheet of sandpaper as it moves over underlying surface. After the glacier melts and becomes water, it does not have enough force to carry the rocks, thus leaving them behind in the form of huge rugged boulders. The glacier collects pebbles, cobbles, sand, etc. from the mountainous slopes, valleys and leaves them on the bed of the glacier. All these debris is called as till. Moraine is the till which gets deposited at various parts of the glacier as the glacier cannot carry it. Ozone is an inorganic molecule with the chemical formula O3. It is a pale blue gas with a distinctly pungent smell. Ozone's O3 formula was determined in 1865. Next session, we will discuss about work of waves, work of winds, vegetation and human beings. Thank you.